the round 4 of ICU Tournament 2024. Again, my name is Bea, I was your chair. After this deliberation, after this oral adjudication, I encourage you to ask for comments, not just from me, but as well from my panelist, Cavan, right? Yes, because I do believe that they have very precise and accurate assessments of the debate. Right off the bat, I also want to admit, and my panelist also agrees with this sentiment, which is that the round was quite close. And ultimately, I think it boiled down to margins in terms of being able to explain where we are able to maximize people's incentives and determining whether or not in the spectrum of kinds of people that can be affected by the change in karmic balance or the existence of heaven or hell, whether or not they will believe that, for example, they can still do good and ultimately act on that knowledge. Given this, my decision was to give it in favor of government. So congratulations, commiserations to opposition. At the top of this, I want to start by saying there is quite a debate on what determines a good afterlife, meaning what do people think they need to do in order to either be reincarnated into a rich person or, as opposed to, let's say, a worm, or to be accepted into the pearly gates of heaven. What I do think from a lens of general comments is missing from both ends is how this is communicated to them. So to be clear, and I'll explain this a lot more, the motion specifically states it is about karmic reincarnation versus heaven or hell. But that doesn't automatically mean we are directly debating about Buddhism and similarly Christianity and Catholicism or maybe even Islam, right? Opposition says the following. The first thing they say is that people are more likely to become motivated because when people are born into, I guess, substandard forms of living, like if they're a dog or a worm or a poor person, they're inherently perceived to be people that were immoral and bad in the previous life, and therefore they are more likely to be stigmatized. And conversely, they say that if it is about heaven or hell, people will have a preconceived notion of who they were before, and therefore they feel like they are redeemable. The second thing they say is that even if they don't believe in motivation, people have a clear idea of how to enter heaven. So my first problem with this is that I'm not necessarily sold, or I don't think I can credit the specific reasons used to believe that people have a clear idea on how to enter heaven. Because the reasons stated include, there are specific codified doctrines that people refer to. So things like don't kill, don't steal, etc. But my understanding is that this is based on an intuition from, for example, the Ten Commandments, doctrines under Christianity. And because of the disclaimer I made a while ago, which is that we're debating exclusively on the belief of the afterlife as opposed to the actual religion itself, I cannot allow opposition to use codified doctrines, especially from those religions, unless they explain to me how inherently a belief in heaven and hell exclusively results in the creation of these codified doctrines. So I do think that is an analysis that needs to exist. It doesn't exist, and therefore I cannot let opposition get away with it. Even if I did believe it, the problem with that is I don't think the comparative on how that doesn't cross-apply to government exists. So meaning, how do people not have like an idea on how to be reincarnated as a good person? Even if I were to believe, and I can accept that you can use your respective religions as intuition comes, as like a side comment, Buddhism does have doctrines, so there is some idea nonetheless, some codified idea nonetheless. I think therefore, the more important thing is the debate on whether or not someone internally can believe that they can gain access to it. And I think a lot of this discussion revolves around the discussion of poor people, because right, both Gov and Op assume that under karmic balance or under the existence of a heaven and hell afterlife, there are poor people in this world that will feel like that good afterlife no longer gains access to them. So the Gov version of this argument is, if you are a poor person under heaven and hell, you will believe that you cannot gain access because you feel like you have to donate $1,000 to Veritas Christi in order for you to gain access to the pearly gates. This is in comparison to opposition who makes the claim that if it is like infinite, you don't know what to do and you don't know therefore whether or not you can get in. The thing is, I do buy the government assessment in comparison to the opposition assessment, for the reason being that the specific claim that government makes, and this is especially clarified in Gov Whip as well as Gov Reply, which is that it is tiered, meaning what people are likely to do is that even if they recognize that they've done some pretty bad stuff in their life, so the example provided was if you're a hoodlum, if you're a thug, if you're a member of the gang, you still believe that you can do small incremental things that at minimum will hedge you against the worst instance of reincarnation. So it's not the difference between being a worm and being a queen, it's the difference between being a worm and being a domesticated dog. This is in comparison to what opposition gives, which is that at the very least, if there is heaven, for example, you can work towards it, or for example, there are codified things, but I've already discussed the part of the codified things. The final thing I want to talk about is on the idea, for example, of, where is it? It's right here. Here. The final thing I want to talk about is on the discussion of fear, for example, and redemption. So again, I think as a general personal comment, the discussion on how fear is weaponized on, let's say, heaven or hell, or on the instance of God, how the notion of ambiguity, or let's say the tierness of it, should definitely be more weaponized. But on the end of Gov, I think they're able to explain to me that the problem with heaven or hell is that it is eternity, and it is terrified. And they would prefer that through the lens of solace, that people believe no matter where they are, that they can be redeemed. The version of solace that comes from opposition is a discussion that no matter what you do, you are likely to still be able to enter. Or for example, there is some guarantee that there is a way for you to get into it. So the first way that they explain this is through saying that no matter what you do, there's a way for you to get into it. I do think this needs to be further explained. At most, I think this is explained through the concession, because there is material in the debate that says, for as long as, for example, you believe in Catholicism or you believe in Christianity, you will enter the pearly gates of heaven. But second, which I think is the more important concern, is that I don't ultimately think it's a contradiction, but I do think it comes into tension with the other half of what you guys want to prove, which is that we incentivize people to do more good. Is it true that if you believe that you can do so many other things but still enter heaven, would you still be incentivized to do all the good things you say? And again, so while I don't think it's a contradiction, I think it ultimately minimizes the ability for me to fully believe the extent of your impact. Those are the two things that you want to be able to prove. So in the interest of time and concision, I think that's the most important parts of the debate. I definitely have more comments to give, so if you do want personal comments, we can start with those right now. I will prioritize opposition though, given the outcome of the debate. So yeah, you guys have